Hello everyone, am I audible? If I'm audible, can you all just text something in the chat box or just tell me that you can see in the question answer you can just say yes or something if you all can hear me. Okay, awesome. Thank you. I just got a yes. Thank you. So we will start with our meeting today. Thank you everyone for joining in. And this today's meeting is going to be twofold. One is where we are going to talk about something very interesting that happened in SRE last week. Uh, it was that our research team came up with a report, and we realized that all our Telegram calls, which we had given since January, um, it gave a return of around 75%. I mean, of course, the markets also went up, etc. But it was a huge return, and it was way more than what we had expected. So I'll just share the stats with you for that. It'll take 2 minutes, and then we can move on to the budget outlook talk. Just a second. Is my screen visible to everyone? Anyway, so I don't know why the PDF is not opening on this properly. It's a PDF reader. Never mind. So I'll show that towards the end of this, so we can move ahead and we can go ahead with our budget talk. And I'll let Chirag take over from here. So just a second.
Hello everyone. Hi, I'm Chirag from Sykes Research. Today I'm going to present to you about our budget 2021 and the outlook the budget has on our markets. So basically, I think by the time all of you would know that it's a growth theme budget. The budget was all about the growth. Now, looking at what was a major part of the budget, first was your Atmanirbhar Bharat. So with Atmanirbhar Bharat, the aim of the Modi government has been very, very focused, and that is they want growth. They want higher capital spending. They want to focus on the reforms which they have been carrying forward over the years, and they want to keep doing that ahead. So along with that, the government has also simply mentioned one thing, that with the growth on our minds, we are basically willing to take more risk by even letting the fiscal prudence go by passing more poll reforms. They want to take innovative strides. They want to, and majorly, if you see this budget has promoted in entrepreneurship more than anything. India, what the budget also says is India wants to become a world economic power. Like if you want to become a world economic power, that's not possible without encouraging industries. So government यहाँ पे ये भी बोलना चाहते हैं कि we want to maintain minimum government with maximum governments. As you know, already quoted by a famous economist, that the government's business is not to do business. Rather, what government over here has trying to do is to lay groundwork for corporates, startups, professionals, etc. What other part of the budget was, government has also mentioned one big thing was 35,000 crores for COVID related vaccines for our Indian population. That's not it. Government has also gone ahead, and what they have said is we'll provide the vaccines to the rest of the world also. If you see, government has already been providing vaccines to the rest of the world. with actually no terms and conditions. They are like, we just want to maintain, bring a goodwill to the country, and we want to become a globally trade partner, that India would grow, and a lot of other countries look forward to come to India and start business. Also, the government has also mentioned that by divesting, government wants to focus on divesting also. By divesting, government has mentioned that they want to just make their presence across 4 or 5 strategic sectors in the nation. Government बोल रही है कि मुझे, I don't want to be on all the sectors and do business across the sectors. I leave that to the private players. I just want to focus on 4 or 5 strategic business sectors in the country. Also, if you see, the budget 2021 has led the highest ever capital expenditure done on infrastructure capital goods in India. This budget has highest ever capex been spent, and the capex has not only come down because of the COVID and other irregularities happening in the country, but it has actually increased by 35%, uh, 35% over the previous year. Also, one of the best part of this budget has been there has been no freebies announced. If you see, previously we would always see budget has some or the other sort of freebies been announced by the government, but this was the first sort of such budget. पहला ऐसा बजट था जिसमें कोई freebie नहीं था government के लिए. What government was like, people rather depending on the government to provide some sort of freebie or something. What government is saying, what it is saying is that we will provide you other things which will lead to your growth. So the keeping that in mind, the government has mentioned that we want to maintain minimum wages. Government has also mentioned that they have come out with one nation, one ration card, which is like on one ration card anywhere in the nation, you can buy and have groceries you want. They have increased the MSP prices for the farmers, which will further lead to the farmers' income, which will make them more independent. They have brought about uniform labor codes, which is gonna revolutionize the entire labor laws in the country. So what government has done in this budget is simply no freebies, but I'm gonna lay some groundwork for you so that you can grow on your own. Now that was all about the government slogan on Atmanirbhar Bharat. Now let's see, before that, if you would see, before the budget, just like 1 week before the budget, government had released an economic survey 2021. I'm going to tell you something about the economic survey 2021 and what it had mentioned. Some of the major point of the economic survey 2021 were, first of all, it's a seeing a real GDP growth of 11% in the next year, FY22. Government बोल रही है कि next year FY22 में our economy will grow by 11%. That I would say is not a very over achievable target. In fact, that is a very achievable target, because if you see, the interest rates in the country right now at 4% are the lowest ever. Okay, and with such low interest rates and the government's determination to foster private investments in the country, government is very keen on, all the entrepreneurs, all the corporates to invest and foster development in the country, which will nothing but spur business activity. And I think hence the 11% growth, GDP growth, what government is targeting is actually a very reasonable target. And going further also, economic surveys mentioned they are expecting an average GDP growth of around 7 to 9% for the next 3 years too. Also, economic surveys mentioned one more fact also, where a lot of economists you see on the TV and a lot of other people in the country, what they say is that inflation is increasing a lot. What inflation they refer to is the consumer price inflation. वो लोग बोलते हैं कि ये CPI कंज्यूमर प्राइस इन्फ्लेशन बहुत बढ़ गया है, तो उसको कंट्रोल करने के लिए द रिजर्व बैंक और द RBI will increase the interest rates, and that will sort of be a negative for the economy. But what economic survey has mentioned that we have to focus more on the core inflation rather than the CPI, consumer inflation. Now, what is the difference between the two? I would say so. Basically, consumer CPI includes everything, but if you just exclude one portion from the CPI, which is your food inflation, अगर मैं CPI से food inflation निकाल देता हूँ because food the weight of the food in the consumer purchasing index is almost 40 to 50%. If I remove the food inflation from the CPI inflation, what I'm left is with the core inflation. And if you see the CPI inflation over the past 1 year has been 6 to 7%, our core inflation has been only 2 to 3%. So economic survey also focuses on one thing is that we should focus the food inflation is very uneven and irrational. What it says it because of the very irrationality, it goes up a lot and comes down a lot. So I would rather focus on the core inflation, and the RBI is also taking a stance where they want to focus on the core inflation, which for India has been almost 2 to 3%, and hence we don't see a much uh, high interest rates or RBI increasing interest rates in the near term at least, because your core inflation is below the 2-3% target. Going next, also economic survey had also mentioned, unlike the budget, economic survey had also mentioned that India should be looking towards a year of structural growth rather than one-time consumption pattern. Like if you just do a revenue, government do a revenue expenditure जहाँ पे वो लोगों को uh, free, maybe they provide them food, shelter, clothing, vagera. I would say rather what economic survey mentions that government should focus on creating asset which will provide them years of structural growth. So if you see budget after that has exactly done that, rather than providing a lot of freebies, they have provided no freebies, and what they have done is they have increased the expenditure on a lot of other infrastructure, capital goods, and all of that, which will increase your growth in the coming future. Not immediately because it takes time, but it will definitely increase your growth in the coming future. Also, economic survey mentioned one of the most important point for India, if India wants to become a global economic power, was that it should focus on ease of doing business. If it's very easy to do business in India, if not very easy, at least easy to do business in India, you will attract a lot of new investments and you have the capability to become a global economic power. So they will be introducing a lot of new laws to do to make sure that the doing business in India is comparatively easier. Besides that, economic surveys also mentioned that since RBI has tried to reduce the interest rates as much as possible in the last year, where they have cut down the rates from 6% to 4%, and they don't have much room left to cut interest rates further. What government has mentioned is now we the only thing left is for us to let go of some fiscal policy. Maybe if somewhat fiscal deficit increases, it's fine. If somewhat we have to focus on the other aspect other than the interest rates. And this is what we are going to see, what we have seen in this budget, and what we are going to see in the coming budget also. So that was about economic survey. Another, now coming to the fiscal deficit. Now if you see the chart over here, अगर हम यहाँ पे एक trend देखेंगे तो since 2010 fiscal deficit, basically what is fiscal deficit first? I would like to tell you that the fiscal deficit is nothing but the government's total income minus total expenses. So what government is saying is if they had a total income of 100 in a year and they have spent 110, the deficit was 10 rupees. So over here, if you see in 2010, we had a fiscal deficit of 6.5%, and over the years from 2010, 11, 12, 15 to 20, in fact 19, fiscal deficit हमेशा कम होता गया 6.5% से it had come down to 3.5%. 3.5% basically means government was earning 100 and spending 103.5. So that was still viable. What is been mentioned in every year in budget also, a fiscal deficit in the range of 2 to 4% is still viable and still maintainable. But if you see this year for FY21, our fiscal deficit has shot up to 9.5%. Two reasons. One is the income has been lower for the government. Definitely, if you recall, there was a lot of no economic activity going on in the economy, and thus the revenue for the government has to be low. Another thing was government had to boost consumption in the economy via government spending. So government spending also increased. Hence, we are right now looking at a fiscal deficit of 9.5%. I know it's somewhat scary to have such a high fiscal deficit, but the government has also mentioned that we are planning and we have a proper plan to bring down this fiscal deficit to less than 4% by 2025. So by 2025, again, government is saying that we will be having a fiscal deficit back to normal, which is below 4%. So that was the one major part of the budget. Next, coming to the next was government borrowings. Now, if you have a fiscal deficit, now if you are basically spending more than what you are earning, it has to come from somewhere, right? So that 10 rupees, what you are spending more, has to come from somewhere, and that is going to come from borrowings. Government basically has revised its market borrowings, which was earlier expected to be 8 lakh crores. Government has revised its market borrowings to more than 12 lakh crores. What the government is saying is to fund consumption, to make growth going on, I will have to revise, and hence they have revised their government borrowings to more than 12 lakh crores. If you see over here below, the government borrowings on an average earlier from 15 to 19 has been between 4 to 5 lakh crores. This is the first such year, 2021, where the government borrowings have increased to 12 lakh crores. So, because of such a huge borrowings and everything, what everyone there has to be a somewhat negative pressure on the bond yield, because suddenly there is a huge supply of the bonds in the borrowings bonds in the market, and the demand being stagnant or somewhat, there's somewhat a pressure on the negative yields जहाँ पे bond yields बढ़ जाते हैं. And but it is not of a big concern, because still if bond yields been increased, they are not expected to reach pre-COVID levels. So that is one such positive what we are expecting going ahead. Going forward to the next slide, government has also mentioned a lot about disinvestment. So let's recall last year government has achieved a mere 32,000 crores only from disinvestment. Last year government ka target tha around 1.5 lakh crores, by disinvesting names like BPCL, Air India, Shipping Corp, Container Corp, IDPI, PML, and lot more. What government could not, because of exceptional events, could not do much of a disinvestment and could raise only 32,000 crores. But now this year, government has set a target of 1,75,000 crore via disinvestment. Along with the names mentioned over here, you will also see that government has also taken up the privatization of two public sector banks. They have not revealed the name yet, and a general insurance company too. So they are going to privatize these three companies. Also, besides this, there has been nothing mentioned in the entire budget about upcoming RBI dividends and 5G telecom spectrum auction money. So this will be a further boost for the economy, and if this materializes this year, we can say that it will go ahead and reduce our fiscal deficit somewhat. I mean, definitely. And governments will also have more funds, more income, which they can deploy elsewhere, and which will further boost growth in the economy. So this was all about in this investment. But one other thing what been mostly talk about this investment, is it good or bad? Is it government is doing the right thing or not? So over here, I would say that we should rather look at it from a balanced approach over here. क्योंकि अगर आप देखो government has lot of non-performing assets. Okay, they have Air India, which is unviable. They have railways. uh, According to one of the reports, the 40% of the railways properties corridors are just lying vacant. I mean, they are of no use. They have a lot of barren land across the countries. They have ports which are shut, which are of no business. They have so many loss-making enterprises. In fact, a lot of them are listed also. So basically, all these government units are actually doing no good to the government. They are making losses every year. They're not earning any profits. The government's energy and effort are best every year on such units. And most, if money is being spent, that is actually the taxpayers' money which is being spent on all of this loss-making enterprises. So I would say that the government is, what they are saying is they want to sell such assets. They want to disinvest such assets to private players who in fact are looking for an opportunity for a proper land, for a proper connectivity and all of that. And these people also have the resources. The private players have the resources to make it economical. So, and not only that, when this private investors, they take on these assets, they make it economical, they further enhance growth in the economy, they create much further employment, the employment creates further growth, and it is a plus plus for the country. So I would say this is a positive somewhat for the government, for the economy, and for the private sector also. And let's not forget, the money which they receive from the disinvestment can be used for a better, investment which will further generate growth in the economy. So all in all, the disinvestment, what has been talking about, has somewhat have a lot of positive approach than a negative approach for the economy as an overall. And also government is not trying to sell it at a throwaway price. If you see, government is talking of disinvesting Air India, या PPCL, या railways and all of that. अगर आप देखोगे तो government does not want to just sell it at a throwaway price. It wants to sell it at a reasonable market price. And how do we know that? We can know that because it's been almost 2 3 years they are trying to sell a lot of assets and they could not sell. It's not because कि उनको opportunity नहीं मिली है या कोई खरीदने को तैयार नहीं है. It's because they are not getting a reasonable market price. So yes, government is trying to disinvest, but yes, also at a good market price, which is again a positive for the economy as a overall. Coming next to the next slide, now we are going to talk about individual sector and what impact did the budget have this year on this individual sector. First of the sector, what we are going to discuss over here is the agri sector. Uh, from the start, government's focus has been on increasing farmers' income. So what government basically have told out a lot of things for the agricultural sector. Their measures announced, they have given a lot of huge fertilizer subsidy. They have everywhere they want to build a lot of warehouses and everything for infrastructure, logistics, and all for infrastructure. Also, government has asked provided banks and asked banks to give a lot of agricultural credit. Then they have made a separate micro irrigation fund just for the entire agriculture sector. Not only that, they have increased credit towards fisheries, dairy, animal husbandry sector along with the conventional agricultural sector. So a lot of measures have been announced by the government for the entire agricultural sector, and I think this has been a very positive approach of the government. In this case, we find that this is going ahead. for the in the markets, this has been positive. We have a positive outlook for Godrej Agrovet, PI Industries, and Avanti Feeds. Godrej Agrovet basically because if you see the government has increased somewhat, import duty on the crude palm oil. Palm oil is the oil which is used to in the food and all over the country, and more than 50% of the palm oil in India is been refined by the Godrej Agrovet, and not only that, Godrej Agrovet also do plantation of the seeds which are used for palm oil. So hence we are positive on Godrej Agrovet. PI Industries is basically because PI industry is into all kind of across agrochemicals and pesticides and fertilizers in the country, and there have been also been one of the best brand in the countries when it comes to particular agrochemicals and fertilizers. So we are positive on PI industries, and Avanti Feeds is because of the entire fisheries boost what they have been giving, what government has mentioned in the budget. Next sector we're going to talk about is the auto sector. Now, government has announced a lot of infrastructure related road investments. They've also announced a new vehicles scrappage policy. Also they have announced that whatever agri investments they have announced in the budget will further boost farm vehicle sales too. So a lot of such measures have been announced in the auto sector. Though all of this, what people from the this sector were basically looking for some kind of measures, some kind of announcement where the government, will influence the demand for the auto sector, or people would go ahead and buy two-wheelers, three-wheelers, four-wheelers, but no such announcement has been measured to, mentioned to influence the demand for the auto sector as such. So that was a sort of unexpected from the entire budget. So hence, from the entire auto sector point of view, I would say it's a neutral for companies like Hero Moto, Maruti, Bosch, Aika. But for farm vehicles and all, like Iker and all, it's really been a positive year, and they have been giving out good sales, and they are expected to announce further good sales in the coming quarter. Coming to the next sector is the healthcare sector. Healthcare sector has been the highlight of the entire budget because the maximum exceptional increase has been in the healthcare sector. Government has announced almost twice the spending on the healthcare sector of all the sectors in the budget. And not only that, government has come out with a new national health mission where they want to revolutionize the health statistics in the country. They what budget says that we want to better healthcare capability and capacity in the country by adding several hospitals, clinics, care centers, research centers, etc. over the next 5 years. And not only that, they want the entire sector to innovate and research a lot, for which they have provided certain amount of fund for the entire sector. So I would say yes, this has been positive for the entire sector, and hence we are positive on Syngene, Divi's Lab, and Dr. Reddy. Syngene basically because it is across the all kind of medicines and all kind of pharma products. TV's lab because it's one of the best lab-centric center in the country, and Dr. Reddy is globally known for its generic medicines across all the kind of products. Next, I would like to take you is to the infra sector. After healthcare sector, one of the major beneficiary from the budget turn out to be is the infra sector. Now, infra is basically your roads, railways, ports, defense, and capital goods. So, government has announced a lot of measures for the infra sector. In fact, one of the best announcement in the infra sector has been the setting up of DFI. DFI is your developmental financial institution. So what government is saying is all the entire infrastructure sector requires a lot of investments. It's not only the lot of investments they require, उनको बहुत they take a lot of time. You have to invest in the entire sector for, one investment takes at least 5 to 7 to 10 years to become viable and profitable. So they have set up DFI. Basically the job of the DFI will be to lend to a lot of infra and capital goods company in the country. So they have allocated a portfolio of 5 lakh crores for DFI, which will be allocated amongst the infra companies in the next 3 years, a very big positive. Also, besides that, we have a lot of InvITs and REITs you would have heard of. So what government has said is the foreign portfolio investors are now allowed to invest in InvITs and REITs, which will bring a lot of foreign fundings indirectly into your infrastructure and real estate companies in the country. So all in all, it has been very positive and it's been positive for stocks like L&T, Ultratech, Cummins, KNR, etc. Next slide I would like to take you is to the FMCG sector. Now, over here for FMCG sector, the government has not announced any measures as such. There has been no incentives or no measures been announced for the entire sector, but one good thing for the entire sector has been at least government has not raised any taxes for this sector. Especially if you see every year government increases, taxes on seen products like cigarettes and beverages. This has been the first such after a long time, maybe a budget where no such taxes have been increased at least. So that was one of the thing in the FMCG sector. But I would also say that the sector didn't require anything specially from the budget because the demand for all the FMCG goods have grown back to normal what it was pre-COVID levels, and rural growth has already been very strong for the FMCG sector even during the lockdowns. So I would say still from the budget point of view, it's neutral for ITC, Tata Consumer and United Spirits. ITC, I would say the rates have not been increased, so somewhat of a positive. But besides that, for the entire FMCG sector, it has been a neutral outlook. Now, for the financial sectors, when we talk about financial sector, everyone knows that financial sectors are the backbone of an economy. Without financials, you don't have anyone to finance all the countries, all the companies in the country. So over here, one of the major announcement has been the FDI in insurance. Government has increased FDI in insurance to 74%. They have also talked about privatizing two PSU banks apart from IDPI Bank. So IDPI Bank is also going to get privatized now. Besides that, they have proposed an IPO of LIC, which is also, I think that's pending since 2 3 years now. So that's gonna come in. Besides that, government has also mentioned that in the financial sector, especially for the secondary bond market, where you don't find much liquidity, they want to set up an institution which will enhance liquidity in the secondary bond market. So they are working towards that. That will basically improve your secondary bond market liquidity and investments a lot. Besides that, if you see further recapitalization of 20,000 crores have been put forth for the PSU banks, which means this PSU banks will further get 20,000 crores from the banks to recapitalize their balance sheet. And not only that, we have been hearing a lot, there are a lot of NPAs and all of that stress assets in the bank. So government has or budget has also mentioned that they will be setting up an ARC, which is your asset reconstruction company, which will take over the non-performing assets, the stressed assets from the banks, give banks the money uh, in return for the assets, and this ARC units will take care of the stress assets. They will take care of the recovery, restructuring, and all of that. Whereas banks will only focus on the further credit growth and the improved balance sheet credibility of the bank. So all in all, I would say this is a positive, especially for SBI State Bank. And besides State Bank, It is a positive for ICICI Lombard, which is into the insurance, and HDFC mainly because of the housing sector also. Going on to the next slide, talking about utility sector. Utility sectors have also been given certain measures, like government wants to revamp the entire power utilities. They want all the discoms which have not been performing very well. They want to provide a lot of credit to the discoms. They want to make sure that discoms, the operations of the discoms improve. They are planning. Government has also framed a new power sector scheme, which is going to be result linked or profit linked. They are going to announce that soon. Also, and they are thinking of privatization of discom. So once that is in, we expect a lot of good operating performance from the discoms itself. And besides that, in the entire utility sectors, in the budget, what government has said is, rather than giving new orders to these companies, what government is focused is on fast tracking the current work in progress. So government is saying that pehle jo current whatever work you have in hand, we want to fast track that and finish that rather than giving you the new orders, which is a very big positive, because a lot of lagged projects will start getting operationalized. And besides that, another major positive for the entire power sector companies have been that none of the power sector companies' name have appeared in the disinvestment. So that's again a positive for companies like NTPC, Power Grid, and Torrent Power. Coming to the next slide, metal sectors again over here, government have announced small measures, like they are going to exempt certain duty on metal imports. Basically, metals will also indirectly get benefit from the infra spending. Whenever infra spending increase, definitely you're going to require a lot of metals like steel, aluminium, copper, and etc. So especially this is indirectly going to boost demand for the entire metal sector. And but if you see in the entire budget, there has been no specific allocation or incentive towards the metal sector as such. But I would say globally metal prices have moved up so much that you don't actually require any boost from the budget as such. And those metal prices which have moved up, like almost some metals have prices have moved up by more than 100%, have already benefited a lot of metal sector companies. And if you see the current results of all the metal sector companies, their revenues and profits have increased a lot by more than 50, 100%. In fact, their balance sheet net worth have also improved because of the increasing profits and credibility. So I would say from the budget point of view, it's neutral for Tata Steel and Hindalco. uh, we are done with the sectors, and now from the income tax point of view, you will see not for much changes have been made in from the income tax point of view. Nothing new has been introduced. Some of the small things what they have introduced in the entire income tax sector has been what they have mentioned. The number of people who have filed returns have increased 100% since 2014. Also, senior citizens who just have pension and interest income, they are no more required to file their income tax, but they are required to pay income tax. But that also is not necessary, because the person paying you, the paying bank will deduct the necessary tax on their behalf. One other good proposal they have made is to reduce time limit for reopening of assessment to 3 years from 6 years. So earlier, government was allowed to reassess your income tax for the past 6 years, but now they have reduced it to the past. So if the government has any thing to look out for, they can only reassess your last 3 years of income tax instead of 6 years. And this is applicable only if your income is below 50 lakhs. No new taxes have been announced. So yeah, definitely that's a very good positive in this budget. They have not announced any sort of no new taxes, what people were thinking, about the new capital gains or anything like that. Nothing new has been announced. and other changes in the ULIPs. So, for example, all the investors paying an annual premium of more than 2.5 lakhs for ULIP will have their entire proceeds on maturity will become taxable rather than tax free, and they will be taxable as per the mutual fund taxation. The gains will be capital gains, long term capital gains. So here what they have done is brought ULIPs more of on a ground playing field with mutual funds, and now the tax advantage is definitely gone for ULIP. So you can purely decide if you want to go for ULIP or some other pure investment vehicle. Other than that, they have sort of simplified the structure a lot. Like government wants to further simplify, the way in which everyone files return. They have also set up a dispute resolution committee for small taxpayer litigation. So for small taxpayers, they have set up this new dispute resolution committee, which will fast track the entire, the whatever tax cases which are pending. Other than that, one good thing what their budget has announced is the establishment of OPC. OPC is basically one person company. So any one individual who wants to start a business in India can get himself registered as a company. You don't need 5, 10 different people or a lot of directors or anything. Just one person can come and establish a company and start a business. Along with that, the entire procedure gets done in less than 3 months instead of year, and also the procedure to start a one-person company is very simplified too. So this will definitely promote entrepreneurship in the country, which will further give a boost to employment and growth. So that's a big positive. And besides this, government has also announced they will be very soon announcing of one single securities market code, which is going to replace your SEBI Act, SCRA Act, and Depository Act. So that was all from the income tax point of view, and that's all from our budget talk. Thank you, everyone. I'll get back to Akash on this.
All right, thank you everyone for joining in. It was great to have all of you all, and I will actually share the report which I was talking about on the PDF report, which wasn't opening on when I was trying to share the screen. I have all your email IDs registered with us, so I will send this report to you all personally on all your email IDs, so you can see how we've given each call, and I'll explain the math to you as well. So once you'll have it, I'll give my phone number and then email address. You can call me up if you all have any problems understanding the math behind it and the color coding and everything. I'll try to put in as much as I can in the email itself, so you'll understand. And yes, so if you have any other questions, please feel free to drop in a mail to us. I will do one thing. I will put my email address in this. Um, I'll send my email address also. My email address is there when you're registered. It is akash@sre.co.in. So you all can see it there. And yes, please do email us if you have any questions regarding the talk which you just had. And please do get in touch. Thank you for joining in and listening to the and seeing the event which we had. We'll have many more like that coming up, and many more interesting topics. We'll have a quarterly event as well by our research team, talking about the stocks that have performed and the future of the stock markets in the sectors, etc. So looking forward to see all of you all there as well. Thank you so much.